No, I don't think it's a... Oh, hello fiends, welcome.
Yeah, welcome to my show.
Anyways, I'm sure by now you guys know about the deep web.
Oh, there's a bunch of nasty stuff.
Yeah, well, tonight's story is not about the deep net. It is about the shadow web. So, without further ado...
Wait, let me do it. Without further ado, let the story begin.
How well do you know the internet? Until 2 weeks ago, I thought I knew it pretty well. After all, I spend a good chunk of my day browsing Reddit and 4chan, and I'm always up to date with the latest memes and circle jerks. I've been doing this ever since the early days of Fortune City pages and IRC channels, and been a regular ever since. Then, about a year ago, somebody introduced me to the shadow web, a sort of secret layer of the internet that you will never find by googling or looking up message boards. There are no links from the surface web to the shadow web. And no, this isn't the deep net, in case you were thinking about that. Not some websites with gore videos or freak accidents. I've seen those. I assure you, this is something far more twisted. I never asked what his name was. He was a regular who came in the gas station where I worked. Every time he came in, he would buy 20 to 50 bucks of Ucash vouchers. I think it was a combination of his beige polo shirts and his receding hairline that gave off the creepy vibe of a pervert. One day, he asked for 300 of Ucash vouchers, and I made the mistake of raising the question, what for? Ever heard of the shadow web? I remember him asking me casually as he counted 300 bucks from a wad of $20 bills. I hadn't, so I shook my head. And then he looked through his wallet and withdrew a little slip, one about the size of a credit card. If you want to find out, he whispered. He leaned towards me and slid the piece of paper into my chest pocket. I gave him his vouchers. He left, and I never saw him again. Not long after, I left the job to return to school. It wasn't until a couple of weeks ago that I came across the old yellow uniform with the piece of paper still in the front pocket. When I opened it and read its contents, I immediately recalled my encounter with that creepy customer. The piece of paper had instructions on how to get to the gateway of the shadow web. There were lots of steps, some more sophisticated than others. Unfortunately, I was both tech savvy and curious enough to follow them. The first thing you'll know about this shadow web is that you don't want to go there. I've seen plenty of fucked up things on the web, but nothing comes remotely close to the things I saw on the shadow web. Thinking back, I should have noped the fuck out the instant I saw the front page. I don't know why I hadn't. Maybe something is wrong with me. When I got to the gateway page, which resembles one of those pages that pops up when you use the free Wi-Fi at the airport or at a mall, the first thing I noticed was the word corpse fucking. It was underneath the search field among 30 or so other words, which I assume were the most commonly looked up things on the SW. Things like skinning and mutilation. That should have been my cue to X out. There were a lot of other things too, other than sexual content and graphic gore footage. Things like instructions on how to make DIY roadside bombs. Things like Craigslist for cannibals or people who wanting to be eaten by cannibals. Things like a marketplace to buy and sell stolen identities, either individually or in bulk. I spent almost an hour reading up on linked war documents and diplomatic cables on a site called avenge.shweb. The website looked very retro, if you know what I mean. The layout had frames, and each frame had its own scroll bar. When I found myself clicking on links without thinking twice, I realized I had become comfortable on the shadow web. Don't ask me how I came across this next website. Curiosity got the better part of me, and I clicked on things I shouldn't have. I'll spare you the actual name of the site because I know some of you will make the same mistake that I did, thinking it can't be that bad. It can. When I got there, I noticed the Ucash logo at the bottom of the page, indicating that paid services were available. It was in fact a live webcam show, but you only paid if you wanted to be the director. Viewing was free. Beneath the live feed was a webcam, which was the login page to the chat room. It prompted me for a screen name when I clicked on the join button, so I entered ASDFASDFG, like I always do when I'm getting on random websites. As soon as I got past the login, a torrent of messages flooded the screen. Most of the messages were in English, a few were in Japanese, and I think there were some in Arabic. The only number of participants in the chat room fluctuated between 150 to 200 people, but that's only the number of people who bothered entering the chat. I suspect more were watching anonymously. The majority of legible messages were start with multiple T's or go 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 or something in that effect. After about a minute, a man with his face hidden behind a hockey mask appeared on the feed. I remember him having dark brown skin and being really skinny, like starving Ethiopian skinny. Shortly after that, everyone was set on mute. Everyone except for one user by the name of Italian Goat, who I figured was the director of this show. That's when the screaming began. She was blindfolded and tied to a wooden chair with her hands behind her back. A bigger, darker man dragged her by her hair until she sat centered on my screen. I watched her try to struggle free from the ropes, but she was so tightly fastened that you couldn't see the bruising. God knows how long she had been tied up like that. Finally, the bigger man took the blindfold off, and she stopped screaming. When she looked into the camera, she seemed to realize what was about to happen. She started crying and begging the two men in what I think was Arabic. Then a message popped up on the chat. Italian Goat. Lay her sideways on the floor. The director issued his first command. The skinny man saw the message and relayed it to the bigger man in their own language. Italian Goat. Kick her in the stomach. The skinny man continued with his translations. Italian Goat. Kick her in the face. The screaming got louder and louder. What the fuck was I watching? That was it for me. I reached for my cell phone ready to dial 911. Italian Goat. Stomp her in the chest. Italian Goat. Tell your friend to kick harder. I paid good money for this. I was in so much shock at this point that I couldn't even take my eyes off the screen. The kicking went on for another 10, 20, 30 seconds. It seemed as if it went on forever though. Italian Goat. Now slit her throat. When I read that last message, the churning feelings in my gut intensified. No. No. No, no, no. I kept thinking, somebody stop this. I tried to type in the chat, but the input field was all blacked out. The woman cried even louder when she heard the man relay the last request. Italian Goat. Wait. No. Not yet. The skinny man held one hand up to signal his partner. My breathing returned to normal for a second, thinking the woman was spared. at least for the time being. Then the director continued, "Italian goat, take her eyes out first." The skinny man stared directly into the webcam. I couldn't see his entire face, just his eyes and a small patch of skin around each one. In his eyes, I searched desperately for the slightest hint of hesitation. "Please, put a stop to this," I prayed, but I kept the mouse cursor hovered by the close button in case they did not. And then, the skinny man began typing, and a second screen popped up on the log. Administration, another $500. My mind froze when I saw the number 500. This woman was being tortured and possibly killed for a mere sum of $500. I was making as much every other week at the gas station, and I was barely making minimum wage. If I could offer $1,000 to stop this, I would. I would empty out my savings account if it meant saving her life. I would. I swear on my life. I would have paid anything to stop this madness. Italian goat. Okay. I quickly shut off the screen before I could see any more. I wish my common sense could have kicked in earlier. I ran out into the yard where I regurgitated about 2 meals worth of vomit. It had been a long time since I felt this sick from watching something. When I was in junior high, some friends showed me a clip from Rotten.com. It was the one where the man had his skull sliced in half by the rotor blades of a helicopter he was in the midst of repairing. And then, over the years, I've seen many more videos like that one. Enough that I don't get the urge to puke in my mouth anymore. But let me tell you this, seeing a live footage of a real person being tortured is stomach turning on a whole different level. When I was done spitting out the last bits of bile in my mouth, I heard screaming coming from my room. It was then I realized that in my haste to turn off the monitor, I had forgotten to turn off the speakers. Her screams got worse and worse, until finally I was able to reach behind the desk and disconnect the speakers from the computer. The silence that followed was unbearable. It was as if by my own hands I had silenced her, killed her. I felt remorse such as I have never felt before. I killed her. I thought to myself again and again, I killed her. The feeling was unreal. I had to find out if she was still alive. As I reached over and to turn the screen back on, a voice inside my head begged me to stop. I do not want to see what I was about to see. But before I could stop myself, my hand had already acted. The image on the screen was an image I will never, ever forget. The severed head of a woman sat there straight across from me, both eyes missing from their respective sockets. That face, that warped, misshapen face, has haunted me ever since. Even now as I say this, I can feel her hollow eyes glaring at me from behind. I sleep with all the lights on, the TV on, but nothing helps. Right before I shut down the browser and reconfigured the network settings to access the good old regular internet, I remember seeing one last line on the chat line. It read, "Administrator, thank you for watching. The next show will be in 1 hour."
Is it over? And that was nothing, boo. Don't do that.
We hope you guys enjoyed the video. Be sure to leave some comments below.
Yeah.
Till next time.